Mm, Um, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Welcome to another session of Finding God. We are on chapter 47, Surah Ash-Shu'ara, um, which we have been covering for the last 3 weeks, and now we're in the final quarter. So, what has happened so far? Um, we started with a bit of well, it was a bit of a summary about God bringing the Quran to Muhammad, peace be upon him, telling Muhammad not to be so worried and so forth. Then there was the story of Moses. Uh, as I've mentioned many a times, Moses is one of my favorite people in the entire history of the human race. Um, there's a story of Moses, and then it's followed by the the great grandfather, so to speak, of the three Abrahamic faiths, which are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, which is Abraham, of course. And after Abraham, we went back into the past again with Noah, another one of my favorite people, Noah and the Ark, and just a bit of a discussion there about Noah. Um, then the people of Ad and Hud and the prophet Hud, then the Thamudites with Salih, and then the people of Lot with sodomy and homosexuality. And we discussed in detail what the Islamic perspective is on that. Today is the last section. I'll be starting with verse 175 and going all the way till 227. So it's the story of the Midianites, um, about how they challenged God's messenger, and then um, how that ties into Muhammad's story now, and just some wrapping up. So, while the initial discussion was multiple prophets, multiple, so this is Moses, and Abraham, and Noah, and Hud, and Salih, and Lot, and now it's the Midianites, and then it comes back to Muhammad. And it's going to talk about Muhammad's life and how these teachings apply to him. This is one of the large chapters of the Quran. I did another one, Surah Al Araf, uh, I think a couple of months ago, and it also took me 4 weeks to complete it. It's the exact same story here. So, so we keep that in mind while we dive right back in. So, if you remember, in verse 174, I stopped with "Verily, in this is indeed a sign, yet most of them are not believers." And then the next verse starts with, "And verily, your Lord, He is indeed the Almighty, the most merciful." This verse has been repeated throughout this chapter and in many other chapters. This same verse. The dwellers of Al Aiqah, near Madian or Midian, denied the messengers when Shuaib said to them, "Will you not fear God and obey Him? I am a trustworthy messenger to you, so fear God, keep your duty to Him, and obey me. No reward do I ask of you for it. By it is the message of Islam or monotheism. My reward is only from the Lord of the Alameen, which is mankind, jinn, and all that exists. Give full measure and cause no loss to others, and weigh with the true and straight balance. And defraud not people by reducing their things, nor do evil, making corruption and mischief in the land. And fear him who created you and the generations of the men of old." Now, before I carry on, you see, each messenger brings the same message of fearing God, and my reward is this. But the advice they give their people varies every single time. With Moses, with Abraham, with Noah, and then even with these prophets, Hud, Salih, Lot. Um, so, do you build high palaces on every high place while you do not live in them? And do you get for yourselves palaces as if you will live therein forever? So fear God and keep your duty to Him. Fear Him who has aided you with all good things that you know. He has aided you with cattle and children, and gardens and springs. So this is Hud speaking to the people of Ad, and then Salih speaking to the Thamudites is something similar. and follow not the command of al-Musrifun who make mischief in the land. And yeah, it talks about the she camel in detail and what the she camel provides you. Then Lot said something similar. Yeah, here's Lot. Yeah, here we go. Um, he said, "I am indeed of those disapprove with severe anger of sodomy." Yeah, it was more against it. It's very interesting. Some message stays the same and the other changes. So Shuaib says, "Give full measure and cause no loss to others, and weigh with true and straight balance, and defraud not people by reducing their things, nor do evil, making corruption and mischief in the land. And fear him who created you in the generations of the men of old." It's slightly different. They said, "You are only one of those bewitched. You are but a human being like us, and verily we think that you are one of the liars. So cause a piece of the heaven to fall on us if you are of the truthful." Every time. This is the case every time. Oh, well, you say you are this great messenger of this great Lord. Prove it. Prove it to us. Show us that this is the truth. If not, we are not going to believe you. Now, before I criticize this mode of conduct, wouldn't we all do the same? I think we would. If I come to you and say, "Well, I have seen the truth. We all reside in Plato's cave. I've gone to the mountain peak and I've seen the truth and the light and everything, and I come back and tell you," what would you say to me? You'd say, "Who the hell are you? Who are you? Why should I listen to you?" We see this with Professor Jonathan Haidt. We see this with Professor Jordan Peterson. We see this with um, Pearl Davis. We see this with Lawrence Southern. We see this with Slavoj Žižek. We saw this with Foucault. We saw this with Nietzsche, Galileo. We've always seen that when somebody brings a message, it's rarely readily accepted. Yuval Noah Harari's book, Sapiens, is a strong and well-written book. There are people who criticize even that. He has used evidence upon evidence and his training in the field to present his case, but even that is resisted. But because the book started doing so well, it had a wider reach. So overall, people accepted it. Same can be said for Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules of Life, or for Life. 12 Rules. So whenever there is a message, it is human nature to resist and to demand evidence. My contention, I'm not supporting the Midianites, but my contention is that their method of demanding evidence is to say, "Cause a piece of the heaven to fall on us if you are of the truthful." I think that is a rightful claim, which brings me to the contention between faith and the scientific method. Because in the scientific method, we observe, we hypothesize, we test for falsifiability, and we verify. And then we reiterate every single time. So if I said to you, "This apple fell on my head," there's probably a force acting upon it. Let's call that force gravity. And let me test it. Well, my keys are falling, and my bottle is falling, and this is falling, and everything is falling. Okay, I tested it. So maybe there's a force acting on all things. Interesting. But where does it come from? Where is it going? And then you get deeper into the laws of motion and gravity and so forth. That's the scientific method. Here, this man comes to me and says, "Believe in my God and not your God. Don't believe in what you've been believing, believe in what I say." A reasonable man would demand some evidence. Because otherwise, if somebody comes to me today and says, "Your God is wrong, Islam is wrong, this new religion X, is the right religion," I don't think I'd believe him. I would say, "Okay, can you perform miracles?" No. "Okay, can your God show me something?" No. Can you reason with me why you're better? Your religion is better? No. Why should I believe you? Right? So I think, although in our book, in our mind, these are the bad guys, these are the antagonists. But to look at it objectively, a reasonable man would require evidence. So, cause a piece of the heaven to fall on us if you are of the truthful. Let the sky fall. Snap your fingers. If your God is the God of everything, ask him to do this, and we'll believe in him. That is a reasonable requirement. However, in faith-based conversation, evidence isn't the central point, which is why when we start discussing, is there a God, is there not a God, do we believe or not believe, can we prove or not prove, there's a whole scientific versus faith contention or dissonance which can't be resolved fully. To this, when they said, drop a piece of the heaven, he said, my Lord is the best knower of what you do. But they denied him, so the torment of the day of shadow, a gloomy cloud, seized them. Indeed, that was the torment of a great day. Verily, and this is indeed a sign, yet most of them are not believers. And verily, your Lord, he is indeed the mighty, the most merciful. Again, the same rhythm. And truly this, the Quran, is a revelation from the Lord of the Alameen. As we know by now what Alameen means, mankind, jinn, and all that exists, which the trustworthy Ruh has brought down. Ruh could mean spirit, but it means so many things. It means Gabriel, or as we say, Jibrail, the Archangel Gabriel. Upon your heart, O Muhammad, that you may be one of the warners in the plain Arabic language. Plain Arabic language. This is interesting. Why should something be said in simple terms? Because it's understandable. I think it was Einstein or somebody of that accord who said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. That's true. That's why you have all these videos by Wired or Jubilee where an expert sits in front of five different people and explains the concept from a 5-year-old or a kindergartner or a first grader, then to a high school, college, postgrad or PhD, and then to an expert. They explain the same concept. So it could be quantum fluctuation, gravitational waves, or it could be how to build a building, or many other things. So the fact that they're experts means that they can simplify to its very essence and say, this is what a gravitational wave is, this is what a building is, and so forth. So I try to do that too with my work, watching them. Yeah. So if somebody asks me, what is a global value chain? I show them my phone, because global value chains, the governance of global value chains is what I work on. So I show them my phone and I say, where was this made? And I say, China. And I say, okay, was all of it made in China? And they said, no. And I said, different parts were made in different sections of the world. Yep. And then they were assembled in China, right? And I said, yep. And I said, that's a global value chain. That's the simplest way I can explain it. So I've tried to adopt that. So putting things in plain language is necessary. And verily the Quran and its revelation to Muhammad is announced in the scriptures of the Torah and the gospel of former people. Now, when I get to the Old and New Testament, I will verify it for myself. I will show in this video series for the next 5 years that I'm continuing that happened. Right now, I don't know enough. My knowledge isn't enough, but this is the book of my Lord. This is the book of my religion. So it says here, and I believe it. And I'm increasingly curious to find exact verses which one can tally. I'm sure there are some scholars even present today or throughout the 1.5 millennia who have done this, but I want to do it on my own accord as a layperson and as a rationalist. Is it not a sign to them that the learned scholar like Abdullah bin Salam, who embraced Islam of the children of Israel, knew it as true, and if we had revealed it, this Quran, unto any of the non-Arabs, and he had recited it unto them, they would not have believed in it. Interesting. So this is kind of giving an explanation of why it is in plain Arabic language. That's interesting. See, in our history, I don't mean the last 500 years. Let's go back 2,000 years, 3,000 years. We see Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, bits of Iran, and then we see Greece, Rome. There are other civilizations that have existed. Islam spread from Mecca, and Judaism, Christianity spread from the Middle East. So the three large faiths that govern the world, I'll come to Hinduism in a minute, came out of that area. I don't see prevalent faiths from the southern tip of South America, for example, or from Africa, for example. I see more religion being propagated from here to the entire world. And then there's India with over 3/4 billion Hindus. There's a lot of Hindus in India and even abroad. I would say even abroad, you can count them, it comes out to a billion. So let's say a billion. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. That's 5 Pakistans. That's 3 Americas, 3 United States. So that's a lot of people. It came out of those areas, India and then the Middle East. So plain Arabic language is very interesting where it was done. So, thus have we caused it, the denial of the Quran, to enter the heart of mujrimun, which is criminals, polytheists, sinners. They will not believe in it until they see the painful torment. It shall come to them of a sudden while they perceive it. Now then they will say, can we be respited? Would they then wish for our torment to be hastened on? Think even if we do let them enjoy for years, and afterwards comes to them that punishment which they had been promised, all that with which they used to enjoy shall not avail them. And never did we destroy a township, but it had its warners. Never did we destroy a township. I think he did. What does this mean? Oh, it's a dual verse. Okay. Never did we destroy a township, but it had its warners by way of reminder, and we have never been unjust. So I think the point is we have never unjustly destroyed a township. We've sent them warning after warning to correct their behavior and then destroy. Amazing. See, this is the mistake that critics of Islam make all the time. They can take this verse 208 and say, look, it says God is saying we've never destroyed a township. It contradicts the other one. But if you read the next verse, you understand it completely and you say, yeah, it makes sense. It's poetry. You don't decipher poetry with a scientific lens, particularly if we believe that it was written by an entity beyond our construction of science. So I just made the mistake in front of you. You saw it happen in real time. And I was like, what? You did destroy towns. What? And then I read the next verse. Yeah, no. It's perfectly written. It is the script isn't flawed. I am flawed for jumping to the conclusion too quickly. So it's an important distinction here. And it is not the Satan, devils, who have brought this Quran down. Neither would it suit them, nor they can produce it. Verily, they have been removed far from hearing it. Ooh, poor Satan. You have been tasked, or you took upon the task of destroying humanity and human beings. I understand that. You have taken this task, and you've challenged God in all that jazz. I understand all of this. But you can't hear the Quran. You're far from it. It's pitiful. I feel sad for you. On the day of judgment, what's going to happen to you? So Satan knew his fate, or her fate, whatever gender you ascribe to Satan, and then said, all right, I'm going to hell and I'm going to die and whatever. Well, at least let me corrupt people. So he knows, or she knows, that their time is limited on earth. That's why they're in such a hurry. If somebody comes to you in a rush and desperation trying to convince you to do something, would you do it? So invoke not with God another ilah, which means God, lest you should be among those who receive punishment. And warn your tribe, O Muhammad, of near kindred. And for this, it says, narrated by Ibn Abbas, when the verse, and warn your tribe of near kindred, was revealed, God's messenger went out, and when he had ascended As-Safa mountain, he shouted, Ya Sabaha. Sabaha or Sahaba? Oh, it says Sabaha. It means, it is an Arabic expression used when one appeals for help or draws the attention of others to the same danger. Okay, all right. The people said, Who is that? Then they gathered around him, whereupon he said, Do you see? If I inform you that cavalrymen are proceeding up the side of this mountain, will you believe me? They said, We have never heard you telling a lie, which means we believe you. Then he said, I am a plain warner to you of a coming severe punishment. Abu Lahab said, May you perish. You gathered us only for this reason. Then Abu Lahab went away. So then Surah Al-Masad perished, the hands of Abu Lahab was revealed, and so forth. This is from Sahih al-Bukhari 64971. It's very interesting. So when it talks about the near kindred, it's this context. And be kind and humble to the believers who follow you. Then, if they disobey you, say, I am innocent of what you do. So when they disbelieve, it's on them now. It's not on you. I would love to meet Prophet Muhammad. To me, he reminds me of all great men that I admire. And I know it should be vice versa, but I tend to know those men better than I know him by virtue of having met them and not having met him yet. Like when my father's amongst some of the greatest men that I know. My father's one of the greatest men I know. And I constantly ask him about why did you forgive that person? Why did you do that? Why did you let that slide? And there's this huge sea of forgiveness. It's like, let it slide. Don't hold people's weaknesses against them. Like on Mondays, I do lessons from my mother. It'll be followed by films from my father or something like that, because there's so much that he's also taught us. But I always ask him these things, and he's like, let it slide. So this thing, I'm innocent of what you do, is God telling Prophet Muhammad, look, if they disobey, it's their fault, not yours. Don't worry about this, please. You worry about all of this. Like this chapter started with that very worry. If you recall, I'm on a different chapter, sorry. But if you recall, it started with Muhammad being worried about it may be that you, Muhammad, are going to kill yourself with grief, that they do not become believers. If we will, we could send down to them from the heavens a sign to which they would bend their necks in humility, and never comes down to them a reminder as a recent evidence. So it's this whole chapter. God is giving example after example after example. Look what happened to the people of Lot. Look what happened to the Midianites and to Noah and Moses. Look what happened to all of them. They were warners. You're a warner. Please, my dear, my love, don't worry. My beloved, don't worry about them. Please. If they do something, it is their fault. How can you not love a God like this? Honestly. How can you not love a God like this? It's insane to me. It's insane. Whew. And put your trust in the Almighty, the Most Merciful, who sees you, O Muhammad, when you stand up alone at night for the Tahajjud prayer. So he would stay awake all night, and he would cry, and he would shake, and he would beg for forgiveness, not only for himself and his people at the time, but all his generations of coming after. When people decry Prophet Muhammad today, a lot of Muslims would get emotional and defensive and ready to attack. I'm telling you, they would. I have never been in favor of attacking anybody else, physically, particularly. Never causing harm. I would urge all those Muslims to reason with the critic and to be open to accepting critique and saying, okay, we've heard your side, now hear ours. Because we believe this man stayed awake all night begging for forgiveness so that we don't end up in hell. How can you not love somebody like that? It is of no benefit to him. But he knows that the great responsibility, damn, he makes me emotional, the great responsibility that has fallen on his shoulders, he has to look after it. It's like a father. Your father will come and protect you. Your mother will come and protect you. There are exceptions where people aren't good parents. But on the whole, parents would come and protect you regardless of if you're right or wrong. They'd come and defend you. But you say, no, my child is correct. Take my money, take my freedom, take everything. I will kill and die for my child. It's that kind of a love. It grips me. And your movements among those who fall prostrate to God in the 5 compulsory prayers. Verily, only He is the all-hearer, the all-knower. Shall I inform you, O people, upon whom Satan descend? They descend on every lying, sinful person. If you can cut one activity out of your life, it is to tell blatant lies. I tend to circumnavigate certain uncomfortable circumstances by using lies of omission. So I practice a lot of silence. Agreement. I focus on the positive. I don't point out the negative. In my mind, I have an opinion, but outside I say, But I don't tell blatant lies. I haven't told blatant lies in years, maybe 10, 15 years. I haven't told a single lie. I've been telling the exact truth. Trying my best to, obviously. They descend on every lying, sinful person. If you cut something out, please stop lying. Who gives ear to the devils, and they pour what they may have heard of the unseen from the angels, and most of them are liars. As for poets, the erring ones follow them. See you not that they speak about every subject, praising people right or wrong in their poetry, and that they say what they do not do. So poetry are lies. This chapter is called The Poets. It's talking about poets telling lies in their poetry. Except those who believe in the oneness of God, which is Islam, and do righteous deeds, and remember God much, and vindicate themselves after they have been wronged, by repaying back in poetry the unjust poetry which the pagan poets utter against Muslims. And those who do wrong will come to know by what overturning they will be overturned. So interestingly written. It's so, the way it's written is so poetic. It's amazing. So that brings me to the end of this chapter. A lot has been covered. There are common teachings. But I tell you, this is a God who loves his prophets and who loves his people. This is a God made of love, of justice and discipline, but completely made of mercy and truth and light and beauty. 227 verses spent just so his messenger doesn't hold himself accountable and responsible for people not following the righteous path. I worry about Prophet Muhammad. He's dead, he's gone, but I worry about how he lived every single day, worrying about the billions and billions of Muslims who would follow him and commit sin and not be on the right track. Him staying awake and begging for our forgiveness. I'm not that large-hearted. I'm really not. I care about myself and things that are mine, my parents, my brothers, my family, my friends, my ambitions. I care about me. I don't think he becomes any less of a prophet or a leader if all his followers go astray, because God has promised him heaven. Why does he care about them? Why do you care? It's insane. It's amazing to me. Why do you care beyond your own self-preservation? It's amazing to me. But I'm going to stop here. Surah Shuara. Spent 4 weeks doing it. It is my honor and it is a blessing. Thank you, God. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful Friday, and I shall see you next week.